Evening and welcome. I am Dr. Gina Kyler, and 30 years ago, I graduated from the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry. In 1995, I completed my residency in internal medicine. I am one of the national co-chairs of the university's Black Alumni Network. Professionally, I'm the Vice President of Health Equity and Community Investments at Excellus Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Tonight, I welcome you to the Black Alumni Network's one-year anniversary event, Stories from the Boardroom, Experiences of Our Black Leaders. I'm very excited to have you all here with us tonight. My co-chair, Ashley Campbell, and I will be your moderators for tonight's event. We have a wide range of registrants joining us for this session, including students, parents, alumni, and even prospective students. Tonight, I would like to now turn over the program to our president, Sarah Mangelsdorf. President Mangelsdorf is an experienced scholar and administrator who is known for her work on issues of academic quality, educational excellence, access, and diversity and inclusion at some of the nation's leading public and private institutions. Before coming to Rochester in July 2019, she served as provost at the University of Madison, Wisconsin. Madison. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Gina. I had to remember to turn on my camera and turn on my mic. Thank you for that warm introduction. And thank you particularly for this opportunity to join you for this really special event. I'm very honored to be here tonight to commemorate a significant milestone for the University of Rochester's Black Alumni Network. We are celebrating the one-year anniversary of the Black Alumni Network and its growth and impact over the past year. Among our many efforts within the equity, diversity, inclusion spaces, this group in particular has been exemplary. As just a few examples among many, the Black Alumni Network was at the forefront of organizing the first university-wide Juneteenth celebration. It has also been instrumental in building connections with our Black students, supporting our Black student unions, collaborating with the university's equity inclusion offices, and organizing gatherings to welcome incoming Black students to the university. I'm very grateful to all members of the Black Alumni Network for their efforts, and especially to Ashley Campbell and Gina Kyler and Emerson Fullwood, who is on our panel tonight, for leading this network as national co-chairs. The Black Alumni Network has not been hindered in fulfilling its mission to unite, engage, and empower our Black alumni and friends, despite COVID-19. As an institution and through the future work of the Black Alumni Network, we promise to continue to celebrate the progress and achievements of Black alumni and friends, honor the collective legacy of Black members within our university community, and foster the future of Black excellence at the university and in our local community. The University of Rochester is fully committed to not only providing a multifaceted intellectual experience grounded in research, but also to ensure that all students, faculty, and staff have access to fair and equitable opportunities to develop social connections that enable them to enrich their educational experiences and help them in their professional development. Tonight's program continues our efforts and features 6 members of the university's Board of Trustees. I know they will be properly introduced in just a moment, but John, Emerson, Curtis, Francis, Kathy, and Mary Frances, thank you for sharing your stories and your perspectives with us tonight. I'm excited to hear from each of you, and I will turn things over to get our program started. Once again, congratulations to the Black Alumni Network on an extremely successful first year. Your efforts make our university stronger, and I look forward to your continued successes in the years ahead. Thanks everyone for joining us this evening, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the conversation.
Thank you, President Mangelsdorf. I would now like to introduce my co-moderator for the evening and network co-chair, Dr. Ashley Campbell. Ashley is a two-time alumna of the University of Rochester. She currently serves as the Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Integration, Education, and Programming with the Institutional Office of Equity and Inclusion. Tonight, we are joined by a distinguished panel of Black members of the university's Board of Trustees. As we have already shared their bios with you in advance, Ashley and I will briefly introduce them now. First, Emerson Fullwood is the retired corporate vice president of Xerox Corporation. Mary Frances Winters is the founder and CEO of the Winters Group. Francis Price is CEO of Interact Performance and PHG Engineering, LLC.
John Davidson is the retired Senior Vice President, Controller, and Chief Accounting Officer of Tyco International. Kathy Waller is the retired Executive Vice President, CFO, and President of Enabling Services of the Coca-Cola Company. And Curtis Johnson is Managing Director and Head of Consultant Relations and Private Equity for the Carlyle Group. Thank you all for being here. Can we just get started, y'all? Let's go ahead and get into the conversation. All right, so first, I would love to say, culturally speaking, please give me grace because I am going to refer to our people, our family, by your first name. And so recognizing my position, I hope that that is okay, that I refer to you by your first name. Thank you. So starting with our first person, Emerson. Since your days as one of the first Black men to attend North Carolina State University, you have been vocal and active in bringing equity, diversity, and inclusion to the communities you are a part of, including the University of Rochester Medical Center and the Rochester community at large. How did your early activism help shape you as a leader in business and in the community?
Well, thank you so much, Ashley, and good evening, everyone. And delighted to be here and to have this opportunity to participate on this panel today with our very distinguished university trustees. And I do want to add my congratulations to the Black Alumni Network on the first year celebration. Really great, great work. So Ashley, let me begin by briefly sharing my story to the boardroom and in particular my activism along the way with the diversity. My personal story begins with very, very impactful role models in my life. Of course, this month, in fact, it was last week, we celebrated the life of Dr. King, and his life and his legacy, his work had just an immeasurable impact on me. However, the real foundation for my journey began with my parents. My parents, they inspired me, they encouraged me, they helped me to develop the fortitude and the perseverance that I would need for my future path to the boardroom. They knew there would be obstacles. They knew there would be inequities and injustices along the way, but they wanted me to be well prepared for this. So as you mentioned, Ashley, I was one of the first Black students to attend North Carolina State University, and this was back in the 60s. On this day, I was confronted with every kind of inequity, exclusion, racial challenges that one could imagine. And of course, my time in school, this was a time, and I would characterize it as a revolution. It was a revolution in the classroom, higher education. And of course, outside of the classroom, a lot of things were going on, and there was a revolution there as well. We had the civil rights movement at its peak. We also had the Vietnam War going on very, very strongly as well. It was a very defining moment where change was being advocated from every quarter. And quite frankly, during this time, I was reminded of my own voice, my own leadership, my own personal responsibility to help forge new paths for those coming behind me. Many had blazed trails for me, and now it was my turn. So when I joined Xerox Corporation after graduate school at Columbia University, I was fortunate to experience and to help build a model for diversity that would capture the attention of corporate America. This was 1972. Actually, this was 50 years ago. While at gave the company an early lead as a global, iconic business giant, it really was the diversity, the equitable systems, HR, promotions, development, affinity groups. It was the inclusive culture that we built. And most of all, it was the enduring values that propelled the company right to the top. It provided the competitive edge that allowed Xerox to be its very best. Now, and as I reflect on this model that we had, I think there were two strategic frameworks that played back during that time. First and foremost was the enlightened leadership from the top. Joseph Wilson was our founder, huge friend to the University of Rochester. I think we got a couple of buildings named after Joe Wilson. I think we got a Wilson Boulevard here as well. So a big, big friend to the university and to this community. And shortly, years later, David Kearns was our CEO as well, that helped to provide this enlightened leadership. And I know we have the Kearns Center. It helps underrepresented minorities in a big, big way. It's one of the jewels that we actually have on campus there. So this enlightened leadership was really incredible. It was like gold. I mean, someone at the top that really helped with that. The second thing that was very present in the company with this model was the courageous and the very purposeful engagement from the leadership ranks. It was there in a big, big way. Our alignment around the values and the culture was systemic right throughout the company. So this is the model that, as I've experienced working and joining other boards, and whether it's been public boards, I've been on six boards, university boards, not-for-profit boards. This is the model. This is what I experienced. This is what I've shared. It was a model that sustained Xerox for many decades. So thank you.
Thank you so very much, Emerson. Well, the next question goes to Mary Frances. You served as the first Black female elected to the University of Rochester board in 1987 and transitioned to a life trustee in 1997 before coming back on the board just last year. Thinking back to this historic appointment in 1987, what is different now for society and for the university in efforts to achieve an equitable society?
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me this evening. And for those who are on and listening, who are friends, and I just appreciate you all, and thank you for being here. Yes, the journey, my journey with the University of Rochester goes back to 1973 when I graduated my undergraduate days, and then 82, obviously, Simon Days. So I have a long history with the university and in the Rochester community. I lived in the Rochester community for many, many years. When I went on the board in 1987, I had already started my own business. I started it in 1984. I left the other major corporation in Rochester at that time, because as a Black woman, I didn't feel that I was going to be able to reach my full potential. So I struck out on my own. And when Dennis O'Brien was president of the university, he tapped me and he said, "You're president of something. You're president of your own small company. And I think that we could use you on the board." What I experienced then, and I think what's different now, at that time, I think the expectation was assimilation. So the expectation was that, when you come into these kinds of spaces that had historically not had somebody who looked like me, that you would learn to fit. And I think what's different today, this generation today, particularly the Gen Zs, they're not trying to fit. And I know that we have prospective students out there, and we're not going to ask you to fit in the University of Rochester. We're going to ask you to come and bring your full selves to the university. So I think that's a really, really big difference. 35 years ago, I was the first. And so you come into that kind of environment. I come from very humble beginnings. My parents didn't even graduate from high school, but they always said, Mary Frances was going to college, and I was, just over the moon when I was accepted at the University of Rochester, mainly because it was 2 hours away from home, get some independence. But I think that today's young people, and I think the way that we're looking at equity and diversity today is looking at it from an equity lens rather than equality lens. An equality lens would say, we're all the same. And we're going to treat everybody the same. An equity lens recognizes that we do come from different backgrounds. We do come from different experiences, and that we want to have our voices heard and our experiences acknowledged and valued. We're not trying to mold into a particular mold. And of course, that's what a university experience is about, right? To explore and to expand. So I see that as a difference in the almost 38 years that I've had my own business. And what we do is diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting. I've seen a big shift from a mindset that we're trying to help people learn how to learn the ropes of the corporation, as opposed to we're trying to learn how to involve people who are different. We're trying to learn about intersectionality, because when you come into an organization, you are not just one thing, right? You have gender and gender identity, race, ethnicity, age. And so all of those things combine who you are. And so we are looking at how do we represent and understand those different identities and those different intersecting identities to create an environment where people can learn and thrive. So I see that as a real positive from 35 years ago, even though 35 years ago, we were recognizing the need to diversify the board, to diversify our organizations. I think the expectation of what that looked like is very different today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I applaud and amen a lot of what you just shared. Our next question goes to, and I have to do it this way, Elder Frances. And my question for you revolves around your legacy of helping to move forward equity, diversity, and inclusion. And you were one of the first trustees to advocate for establishing this Black alumni network. And before I go into the essence of my question, I would like to just thank you for having a brief conversation with my mom in the airport one time. I was a freshman at the university and struggling, trying to figure out how to make sense of the world in which I had been plopped into. And you had suggested to her and also made the connection for me to start dancing with Garfagan Dance. And that has richly empowered my life. And so I'm very grateful for that conversation that you had with her. Mm-hmm. The question I have for you is, what is the importance of having affinity and identity-based networks with companies and organizations? How have you seen EDI work evolve within your professional field and as your work, your work as a trustee?
I hope you can hear me properly, just fine. By the way, before I get to answer the question, I certainly appreciate the memory of your mom, because believe it or not, as soon as you said it, it all came rushing back because I remember meeting her at the airport actually, and starting to telling her what we were trying to get done. But the much of the motivation during my time, Mary Frances and I, we sort of overlapped a little bit in school, and like her spouse was a dear friend of mine because both of us at the time were sort of quote unquote weird Black people because we were interested in money and finance. We weren't doctors or lawyers or anything that we wanted to make money. And so him and I became friends. And actually, both him and I and another colleague who passed away, Francis Giles, the three of us, we led the activity around entering Simon. Before Simon became Simon, it was Graduate School of Management at the time. And so they had this 3-2 program, so we entered it. But talking about this, a lot of my advocacy, I sort of got mine early because as you hear my accent, I came from another place. I wasn't born here. And coming to the university, an opportunity to, actually, I didn't even come to study or anything like that. I entered the university to stay in the country because I was an immigrant without a visa, and my family, my older brothers and all that. So if you go to school, you can stay. And so that's what I did. I am forever in love and grateful to the University of Rochester because the University of Rochester took me in. I mean, basically, I didn't have all of the background. I had a great high school career in Jamaica, but after high school, I went to work. And then, coming to country, I was like 4 or 5 years out of high school. But Rochester took me in and gave me a chance to create my life, and it is, the balls of bounds properly. My advocacy was based on my feeling of saying thanks to the university because it was there to help me. And so what I wanted to do was to help and pass it on. And they at the time, one of the sort of symbolism that we were using was that Underground Railroad poem that talks about leaving the light on. So, those who come behind you can see the light. But that was my mission. That's how the business of being a trustee, when I was asked, that was my mission. I said, okay, I don't have money to give and all that. But, and you mentioned Dennis O'Brien. It was Dennis O'Brien who actually approached me. And I laughed at him. I said, you really think if you read anything about me or you did any study about me in my school days, I wasn't a troublemaker or anything like that, but anyone who knew me knew I had a very strong opinion of myself and anything that I got into. So how would you ask me to come to some organization and believe that I'm going to sit quiet? That didn't make any sense. But Dennis O'Brien said, Francis, that's why we're asking you. And so I ended up deciding, well, I think I could help. Along the way, Emerson mentioned Xerox because Xerox actually became very, very important to me. Emerson and some of the guys who joined, I came to the company 3 years after Emerson joined. And this Affinity group, and that exists to this very well. In Los Angeles, it was called Los Angeles Bay Area, Los Angeles Black employees. And in San Francisco, it was Bay Area Black employees, BABE and LABE. And during those, and I'm going back, 75, 76, we spent time because in Southern California at the time, Xerox's problem was that no matter how they tried, they couldn't get especially young Hispanics to come to work there. And we were trying to get people to come in like as technicians to repair machines. So what we did, in LABE was we took the challenge from the company and organized ourselves and start to work in the barrios of East LA, just because we could take off our suits and just wear a t-shirt and didn't feel bad about it. So we did that and sort of blended in the community, became friends, and got young kids to come take the test. And as it turned out, they did not any training in mechanics or anything like that, but people had natural smarts, natural abilities. And we created a pipeline for young Hispanics and young Black people in Los Angeles. And that was a lot of where mine began. As years went by and I worked in different parts of the country, I only worked at Xerox for 6 years, actually. But during those 6 years, I was fortunate. I had 6 different jobs in different parts of the company. I just got, I kept getting promoted and moved around, and had an opportunity to meet a lot of people and was able to help connect and find jobs. And not only, because sometimes when you're finding jobs in corporate America, you have to help people find a home also, and or find a place to stay because they couldn't afford things. And so we learned all of that. And I found that a lot of people in Xerox was very, very willing. Much of them, Emerson knows, Yanni knows who the people we're talking about. One particular guy, he passed away recently, a guy named Gene Ruffin, turned out to be one of my best friends, but he was instrumental in like shaking down the doors so the rest of us could come in. And I simply followed what I saw him do and saw some of the other people. And it still works to this this very day. But that was really what motivated me to do it. And my general approach, however, was to help the company, because I was very grateful, still am, that the company took care of me and gave me a chance to participate and build a life. And my way of paying back was to go find the people they were trying to look for. And although I wasn't in the personnel business, my life has always been in finance and administration and then engineering management. But I was willing to go knock on doors and hold people and bring them in, because the company was very, 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 very kind to me, simply because I had no reason to believe they owed me anything or anything like that. But I got a chance and it made a lot of sense. In your notes, you wanted me to comment on some of this at the university. I was to take this advocacy through the current school, the current center, and all that. I'm very, very and this time I will pat myself on the back if you will help me. But the current center came about from this same discussion about keeping the light on, because we wanted to make sure that African-American students would feel comfortable, because back in my day, and Mary Francis can attest to that, we could not claim to be comfortable. We were there and we came there and we got good education, but it wasn't particularly comfortable. The current center was the whole idea, to create this place where it was welcoming. It turned out that because I had worked at Xerox and then became a trustee later, many years later, David Kearns became a personal friend of mine. And the current center was my tribute to him, because he had done so much for many. My thinking, when I talked to the trustees, I used to tell them that Kearns means so much to African Americans that most people would ever imagine. I don't know if any single individual was contributed to African American life and African American welfare than David Kearns.
Wow, Francis, I'm going to jump in here. You know, I never knew that about the Kern Center. And I also have to say, I'm one of those people who benefited from you leaving the light on. And so I really want to extend my gratitude to you for that. I want to keep the questions going here. And my next question is going to be for John. John, you spent your entire career in accounting and financial business leadership roles, and even now in retirement, serve as an audit and financial expert on the boards of major corporations. And you previously served on the board of trustees of the Financial Accounting Foundation, as well as the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. How did you navigate these corporate and financial industry spaces as one of the only few Black leaders? And how were you able to help advance equity, diversity, and inclusion to build high-performing global teams?
Well, Gina, thank you so much. It's great to be here, and congratulations to the Black Alumni Network. And I want to congratulate as well Ashley and Emerson and yourself, Gina, for the work you've done in making this all come about and for the success to date. Well, and it's great to be here. Thank you very much for having me. But, you know, it's interesting as you think about corporate America. Back in the 70s, when I started, it was still very unusual to walk into a room and not be the only African American in the room. Sadly, if we fast forward, you know, some close to 50 years into the future today, unfortunately, we still have too often that same situation. So even today, as a corporate director and director for not-for-profits, University of Rochester is noticeably different. It's not unusual to be the only one, or maybe one or two. But you know, that is the situation that I think we all have had to live with and figure out how to thrive and survive in. So let me tell you a little bit about my strategies over the years. Now, I also came to the US from Jamaica and, you know, looking for opportunities. I did have the good fortune of having early on some role models of some young people who were going to college, and that actually it stimulated my interest and kept my interest alive. The groups, the folks actually belonged to the Garfig and Dance Company, and I danced with the Garfig and Dance Company for a couple of years there. So that was a very good start for me, and where role models actually played a role in my life. Upon graduating, I did start in public accounting, working for one of the large public accounting firms. And it was around the time when there was a lot of interest in increasing the representation of Black people in corporate America. And you've heard Emerson and also Francis talk about that. And I think that was great. That gave me opportunities. But at the same time, one of the things that, you know, I would hear from time to time, kind of whispered or kind of say under the breath is, you got that job because you're Black. And so for me, that really caused me to focus on trying to establish a reputation and track record of being competent. And so, you know, I stuck to my knitting in accounting and finance, and wanted to be recognized as being highly competent in the field. And part of that motivation was to dispel this notion that I got the job because I'm Black. Being in accounting and finance, you can get pigeonholed. So the other thing that I did was I kept, you know, my options open. I undertook a number of different assignments within companies to really get to know the companies. I networked outside the company to build my acumen beyond accounting. It's because I wanted to be regarded as a more well-rounded business person. And that did, in fact, serve me well over the years. The other thing that I wanted to do was build a reputation of having, high integrity, accountability, and that I could lead teams of diverse teams. And in fact, I got my early supervisory job when I worked at Kodak, and I was leading people who were substantially older than me, and all white teams, and that worked out for me because I also had role models in the Rochester community, people like Joe Winters, as you heard about. I never met Francis at that point, but I heard of Francis. And so, these are people who were making their way through corporate America that I could look to and aspire to be like. And I also wanted to establish that I could be a strong leader, that I could take on projects and assignments and get them done, not just necessarily through my own effort, but collaboratively as a part of a team. And I think that's worked out. And I've, over the years, I think built and established a reputation of being able to take on very tough challenges and make tough decisions. The other thing that was important for me was taking ownership of my career. And I learned to do this when I was at Kodak. I'd heard about Kodak having this executive development program, which is where they actually nominate a couple people each year to go into the program at the University of Rochester, Simon. And I approached my supervisor at the time and told him I was interested in being considered for the program. And, unfortunately, he came back to me a couple weeks later and said he didn't think that I was well suited for the program. So, disappointed. I was lucky to have people in the organization that I could talk to and just be a sounding board. And in fact, they helped me figure out how to navigate that. And I did, in fact, reach out to another person within the organization, hiring the organization to talk about why it was important for me to do it and why it was important for Kodak to support me. And sure enough, that person had the courage to take the risk in nominating me and took had the courage to actually support me. And in fact, I was selected for the program, and that made a huge difference in my professional career. And, from that moment, I realized that, I really need to take ownership of my career. I actively seek feedback and try to act on that. Then the other thing that I think has been really important for me, and it goes back to the same fellow who supported me, is that, as a professional in corporate America, I needed to have a network of folks that I could draw on for advice to help me figure out how to navigate, some of the more sensitive issues, how to get things done through formal and informal channels. And I've been very, very fortunate to have a number of people support me, a number of people who were advocates, and a number of people who became sponsors. Some were, Black, but quite a number of them were majority males. And so I'm really grateful that, like Francis, there were people who saw some promise and, took the risk in supporting me in my career. So if we kind of talk about then, how do I support diversity? I've been very active throughout my career in helping to get people into the organization, of people of color to the organization. I actively recruited. Right now, in my role as on the board, when we talk about organization and leadership development, I'm looking to get visibility to the demographics and what the plans are for enhancing diversity in the organization. And I actively mentor folks myself. And in fact, I'm currently actively mentoring 2 people. And so, there are a number of different things that I've been able to do both individually and also as part of a board or a team.
And we are grateful and so appreciative of that. I want to shift gears to Kathy. Kathy, you graduated from the University of Rochester with a major in history And you went on to make history as the first woman and first Black person to hold the position of CFO at a Fortune 100 company, Coca-Cola. While at Coca-Cola, you also had a legacy of supporting and advocating for women, including becoming the founding chair of Coca-Cola's Women's Leadership Council. How have you continued to further your EDI work and the advancement of women through corporate boards as well as the university?
So good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this discussion with this panel, this very distinguished panel, many of whom I have worked with and known for many years. Yes, I do continue to work to help the advancement of women and Black people and other people of underrepresented groups. On public boards, I support the Black and female associates by mentoring them, as John was talking about, helping them navigate in the organizations, and helping to raise issues on their behalf when the risk to any individual, at least they perceive the risk, or to any individual or the group or groups of individuals, that risk is perceived to be too great for them to raise the issues themselves. I raise them often to their leadership and to the board, frankly. I participate on the boards of Spelman College and the Girl Scouts, where I'm actively working to support young girls and women and to help them to grow and develop and to build their skills and to build their confidence. And I learned when I was at Coca-Cola that when working on the Women's Leadership Council, that our work really needed to start early, and it needs to start at the level of kids still in school. And that's why I started working with the Girl Scouts to help them, because they're our future leaders, right? To help them to develop and be ready for these senior leadership positions when they get into the workforce. For the University of Rochester, I participated in the Women's Network, which was formed in 2020. And after the George Floyd murder, Jerry Gardner, who was an alum of the university, Carl Grant, and I started a speaker series to educate the Atlanta alums about the organizations and the resources supporting the Atlanta community on issues of racial inequality, issues in education, housing, the criminal justice system, issues around food insecurity, health disparities. So we have this monthly speaker series that we do to educate our alums and help them understand the resources that they can go work with in Atlanta if they want to help and be part of the solution, right? And then every semester, I present to a group of Georgia State students that are enrolled in a program that's called Women Lead. And I talk to them about career development and my career, and then answer questions about how to continue to advance their careers. So I do a few things. Unfortunately, I feel like every time the things that I do aren't enough, right? Because the problem still exists. The problem is still big, and there's still so much work to be done. And we need so many more people engaged in supporting our students and supporting our communities. Based on your question, I am very proud to have been the CFO of the Coca-Cola Company. What is unfortunate is that I made history. To be the first Black and the first female CFO in that company's 130-year history is unfortunate. And although the person that succeeded me in that was a white male, I truly hope that many Black and female CFOs will be in the company's future, because that would be the real shame of it all if I was the only. That is not history I want to make, right? So, we have certainly at Coca-Cola and many other organizations, some of which I'm on the board of, but at least before the pandemic, there was a great pipeline of women that were ready for senior leadership positions because we actively worked on it and they were ready. We lost, unfortunately, a lot of women out of the workforce because of the pandemic. And now we've got to figure out how to get them back into the workforce and without them losing any ground, right? We've got to get them back where they left or higher, right? And help them move forward. I don't know of many companies, and that's Coca-Cola included, that have a great pipeline of Black associates that have been identified, that are ready, that have been supported to take on these senior leadership roles. And that's the work we still have to do. And it's across this country, Atlanta included. There's a great deal of work to do around the education system and so many other things. So my work is to help educate people. I continue to educate myself and about what's going on and how I can lean in more and support of various organizations, but just also how to help, because generations are different from where I am, right? Generation Z is very different from me and how I dealt with things. And so I continue to learn about them and how I can work with them to help to advance their goals, right? So I do continue to do a lot of things, but there's just so much work left to be done. Sometimes it feels like taking 2 steps forward and 5 steps back,
Oh, Kathy, thank you so very much. I agree. We have to really support the pipeline and nurture the future. And, along that line of passion and nurturing, my question is for Curtis. Curtis, your passion for education, mentorship, and assisting underrepresented students can be seen through your involvement in your professional work at the Carlisle Group, as well as in your other responsibilities with nonprofit organizations, and as a committee co-chair with our very own Black Alumni Network. So can you tell us more about why you became so passionate about mentorship?
Well, thank you, Gina. It's great to be with everyone this evening and to celebrate the accomplishments of the Black Alumni Network. And yes, I am very passionate about mentoring as a mentor and as a mentee throughout my entire career. I've been fortunate to have a career in corporate America for over 30 years. I spent most of my career in financial services, which was a dream to me as an undergrad, and a job and role, frankly, that I couldn't even imagine as an undergrad. But as some other folks have mentioned, and my house was the same, my parents didn't work in an office or have corporate jobs. And I'm very confident in saying that without the help of mentors along the way, my career likely would not have been as long, nor likely as successful. My desire to help with mentoring and education just really comes from a place of gratitude. I'm grateful to the professors at the University of Rochester that took an interest in me, and the many professional mentors I've had, and been fortunate to work with throughout my career. I recall as a young professional starting my career, when I got my first job, how happy and excited I was. I was like, I have a job. And then a couple months later, I was like, well, what do I do now? Where do I go? How does this career journey work? And who can I talk to about that? Corporations can be complex. They can have thousands or tens of thousands of employees in different business segments. And young professionals often have questions about their career journey. And for Black and underrepresented professionals, this can be overwhelming and in some cases even intimidating, especially if there are no senior level executives that look like them, understand their unique gifts or their path into the organization. And so mentors can provide that career advice, additional perspective, be helpful on navigating workplace issues or opportunities, and sometimes, just be a voice of encouragement in the middle of the day. So, I've been involved with formal mentoring programs and casual mentoring programs. The University of Rochester, as was mentioned, has a great mentoring program that I participated in as well. And in my mentoring experience, I've tried to be helpful to mentees to reach their goals. And I think I've actually gotten as much out of it as the mentees. I was delighted to join the board of trustees to work with such a great group of trustees that are on this call. With you and Ashley and Emerson and President Manglesborg. And really my seat on the board of trustees, I'm on the board to support the university in any way that I can, but my voice is for Black and underrepresented students and their presence on campus. And with the fond outlook, of course, for the students from Rochester, because that's where I'm from as well. And I feel fortunate that as an African-American man, I can give back to the University of Rochester and to my organizations and be a resource for younger professionals.
Well, this is amazing, right? We are cooking with gas. We got all kinds of juices percolating with all kinds of interesting and intriguing and insightful responses. Just to be cautious of time, right? So there's this factor of time that is looming with us. Gina and I have one question, right, that we want to engage all of you around. Can you share with us one word or phrase that motivates you to keep going? And it can be to keep going in your professional spaces, your community spaces, or even with the board, serving as a trustee with University of Rochester. So whomever feels motivated to go first, please share that one word or that phrase with us.
Actually, Emerson, I'll give it a go. You know, we've talked about David Kearns earlier tonight, and he would quality being a quality company, and his reference was it's a race without a finish line. And I think the diversity, equity, inclusion, you know, there's just, and everyone has talked about it, you know, we don't have a finish line. We just got so much more work to do. And that's why I think all of us just feel as successful as we've been, you know, our success has been limited because, you know, there's just the ones coming behind just need in that regard. So it's a race without a finish line.
So what keeps me going is, my phrase would be, then is now. I wrote a book last year called Black Fatigue, How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body, and Spirit. And because we haven't made the progress, and I just keep thinking then is now, and some of the other panelists talked about that, we've made progress. Of course, we've made some progress. But when I hear the generations that have come behind me, you know, I'm a baby boomer, and so Gen X, Gen Y, and now Gen Z, who are having the same experiences. I think that when I just hear that phrase, then is now, and thinking about how much further we have to go, that keeps me going. I don't want to leave. I thought I would be leaving this world as a better place than it was when I came, but not right now. It isn't.
So I guess for me, it's as simple as to whom much is given, much is required. I have no right, with everything I have been given, as blessed as I am, I can not just sit on my laurels and not do anything to help everybody else that I can possibly help. And that's it, you know, that's a responsibility that I feel. And it's just a matter of, I've been very blessed, and it's my responsibility to make sure that others are blessed as well.
Yeah, I guess I would jump in and say, for me, it might be a word that is so dear to the university, meliora. You know, things have gotten better. We've made progress, but as several of my colleagues have said, there's still more that we can do, and that we need to focus on making better as individuals, as a university, as society. And we need to have a place that is inclusive and allows everybody to have that opportunity to succeed. And there's still a lot more work to be done.
Well, you know, along those lines, you know, life is lived within the context of our society. And in 2020, the systemic racism and racial injustice across this nation led to sweeping protests and demands for institutions to improve their treatment of Black people. Did these events have any bearing on your leadership roles? And I'll put that out there for anyone who's brave enough to answer it, to take it on.
It certainly did for mine, very much so. I guess doing this work for 38 years, you know, as a business and working with large corporations, we have, you know, we work with Fortune 500 companies, and we go in and help them with their DEI strategy. And what really shocked me was when the protests started, that I heard from so many leaders, oh, we didn't know that racism was still an issue. And I guess I was naive to think that, well, what have we been working on? What's the work we've been doing all these years? And so I think it changed my leadership to be really much more courageous in calling out racism. I wrote another book called We Can't Talk About That at Work, How to Talk About Race, Religion, Politics. And that was written in 2016. So I knew that we weren't having the conversation. And I still think we are not having the conversation. So my leadership has been, and the programs that we take into organizations is, I have a book called Inclusive Conversations, about how to talk about these issues. Because when race comes up, we can talk about gender, we even talk about gender identity, talk about ageism. But when race comes up, people don't want to talk about race. And that is a real issue for African Americans because we sometimes are accused of playing the race card. So you don't know if you say that something is about race, oh no, that couldn't have been about race. I'm gonna stop now because I can go on and on about this, but I really think the leadership that we need is to continue to get race as its own topic on the table for discussion. Not that the other dimensions of diversity are not important, but it's difficult to isolate race because people are uncomfortable talking about it. So that's how my leadership changed, being much more proactive and even provocative and courageous. You know, when you run a business, you run the risk of getting fired. So there's a financial aspect of that too, right? All the finance people here.
Well, I have to leave as we talked about before, but I think for me, we have to keep the light on still. And that's sort of what drives me and my involvement in this, is just keeping the light on. And with that, let me sign off and say thanks to everybody. And it's great seeing some of my old friends, and all is well.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you so very much for allowing us to spend some time with you tonight.
Okay.
You know, so if I can just quickly follow on what Mayor Francis said, you know, when all of that happened, I had CEOs and other, you know, board members call me and say, you know, I didn't understand that the racial issue was still this bad, right? What's going on? And they asked me to share my experiences, which was incredibly difficult for me because, as any of us might know, when things happen to us, to be able to move on, you put that stuff in a box and you nail it shut so that it doesn't interact with, you know, doesn't impact you every day, and you don't have to, you know, can't deal with it, and still keep, you know, a positive attitude and keep moving forward, et cetera. So I had to open that box to share with them those very painful experiences, to help them understand how race had impacted me. And because I believe they believed it would make a difference to them, and I was willing to take that chance. Right? If they were willing to listen and it was going to make a difference for them, I was willing to open that box and take that risk. And I hope and pray that in some level it did impact them, and they you know, they're responding differently and they're doing different things today, because, you know, it was very painful to open that box. But the fact that they were unaware was mind-blowing for me. I mean, I don't know how that could have been possible, but many of them were absolutely, and I believe them, they were unaware.
Anyone else want to take that? If not, I have another
Well,
question. Oh, go ahead.
I was
Go
just
ahead,
going to
John. No,
mention.
come on, John, I want to hear it.
No, I was just going to mention that in the wake of the George Floyd issue, one of the things I try to do is reflect on, you know, what can I do? What's my sphere of influence, and how can I be more effective? So there's some things I did personally, you know, but it's to try to help at a policy level. But I was on the board of 2 public companies, and I reached out to the CEOs, the chairs of the board of those companies, and talked about how is it that how is the company going to make an impact and do things differently in a way that can really enhance the opportunities for African Americans, because these are usually, you know, large global companies with huge US footprints. And I was very encouraged. Several of them had already set up a number of forums for employees to talk and have safe spaces to talk about race. But beyond that, they put their money where their mouths were or are. One company has established a scholarship in the STEM area for African Americans. And I'm not saying that they did that because of me, but I certainly try to encourage them to have an impact. And another also has done something similar in the Baltimore area, and as well is also supporting and providing funding to address some of the significant policy issues that we need to deal with to get around voting rights and you know, equal rights in this country. And so I think that that's very important, and that's a couple of the things that I've done since the George Floyd incident.
Excellent,
Gina.
excellent. Thank you so much. Oh, Emerson, go ahead.
Yes, so just a couple of things. One, right here at our own university, I want to make sure we're complimenting our president and her predecessor. So pre-George Floyd, clearly here in Rochester, urban education has been somewhat challenging. And the university stepped up and said, look, we want to be a partner with urban education. We will adopt a high school, school here, to really see if we can help make a difference. And whatever the investments are that need to be made, we will make sure that we'll be at the table to help with that. So we've had a model where we literally had a in the when we ended, last year, Sean Nelms, he's one of the, he's an associate professor here at the university as well, the Konar Center. He took that with a lot of support, help, the great staff, to somewhere close to 75, 80% now. So that's one. George Floyd happens. University again, I happen to serve on the Medical Center board here, the University of Rochester Medical Center board. And we serve this community in terms of healthcare. We have physicians, we have all of the healthcare that you can imagine, the whole spectrum. And, our CEO, Mark Taubman, said, look, we do have some issues that we got to face up to. We need a plan. We need an anti-racism plan to help correct and improve many of the issues that we have here internally as well as externally. So there is a plan that is in place. Some of these problems will take time, but some things it's low-hanging fruit that we can make sure we make progress on today. So I happen to co-chair a health equity committee that's very focused on the community, the health of the community, and we have several things that we must make sure we can have improvement, and that was a direct outcome of, I think, the George Floyd issue. So I just wanted to give some credit to the university here, what we're doing here.
Thank you so very much. Now, I want to make sure I ask a question from one of our registrants. And that question is, and this is for all of you, what are the biggest challenges keeping people of color from reaching the executive suite, and how can they overcome them?
I'll take a shot at that. I think it's a great question. I think the answer is quite simply opportunity. There's not enough people of color, underrepresented groups, Black people coming into organizations and giving the opportunity to excel, to be put in positions that are challenging, to be given the guidance and career path to go on and excel through organizations. It just, I'm in the financial services industry, as I mentioned, and we can see it there. There's just not enough people coming in. I think part of the answer is, and Emerson started to comment on this, is that we need to have more people look at it as possible career opportunities and to apply for those opportunities. And once they're in those organizations, right, be given the appropriate guidance and mentorship to make sure that they can continue to excel in their career and stay and prosper within those organizations. I think really, if we just had those kind of commitments and introduce those type of opportunities, I think you'd see much more leaders created from diverse communities.
I also think it's a function of building relationships and building your network. It is, when you develop relationships with people, you get to ask questions about how do you navigate this organization and how do you make it to senior levels, and you get the opportunity to tell people what it is you're interested in and you want to do, and find those people who might be willing to help you get there. But so many times we go in thinking that we need to keep our heads down and get our work done, and that work will speak for us, or it will shine. That work will shine, and everything will be all right because we'll be plucked out because people realize what great work we do, and that's really not what happens. What happens is you have to advocate for yourself. You have to work at developing the relationships and the networks that then allow you to meet the right people, to move within the organization in the right way, to be noticed. It's not necessarily that great work that you do that's going to make you noticed. Now, you don't do the great work, you're not going to be noticed for sure. But that great work on top of the other efforts to build your network and your relationships helps you to get noticed, and then asking the right questions and making sure people know what it is you're interested in doing, what you want to do, and finding those people that will support you and help you, like Curtis just talked about.
Yes, and we also have to think about the systems of inequity in the organizations, because you can do all of that. And throughout my career, I've known people who've done all of that, and they don't make it to the level where you make it. Some people will get through, but not a lot. And so let's turn it back, not on necessarily on the people of color or the Black people, what they need to do. What do the organizations need to do? The organizations need to interrogate their systems, their policies, and their practices that perpetuate not only unconscious biases, but conscious biases in all sorts of ways. I don't have time to elaborate now, but some of the stuff that we do in our audit work is we look at what is in the system. It's not the person. It's not necessarily, we're not saying it's this white supervisor or whatnot. It's something, there are things in the system, rules that are written and unwritten that continue to preclude us from getting to the top. So it's what you say, Kathy, and others, but it's also, I think we have to put the burden on the organizations and the organizational leadership to eradicate, because leaders have power. I talk about power brokers. They have power to change those things. The Salesforce CEO who realized that women were there was a pay inequity, for gender pay inequity. And he said, we just need to fix it. And so there are people in power who can, when you see that this is not happening, it can be fixed by those people who are in power, who can recognize what's going on for those underrepresented groups that are not getting the opportunities. I'll stop. I'm sorry. I'll stop.
But that's also where boards, and we're on boards. We sit on boards, and we, as board members, we need to be pushing for that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I completely agree. Emerson talked about the progress that Xerox had made back in the 70s because of enlightened leadership. And that makes a huge difference when from the top it is positioned as a priority, as an imperative for the organization. And, to Kathy's point, I think it needs to start with the top of the organization. The board needs to be making sure that compensation programs have a component of equity, diversity, and inclusion, and also to focus on, racial representation and equity within the organization. I'm a bit, I think corporations have done a pretty nice job with regard to gender, and they still have a lot more to go. But I also think that the gender focus has made it a convenient excuse at times for them not to focus as aggressively on racial representation and development and progress within the organization. And I think those of us on boards ought to make it, keep that dialogue going and really push for more focus and accountability.
That is a great point, John. Thank you.
Well, thank you so very, very much. I guess one last question. Second to last question. It's not gonna be the last one. I wanna know, heavy stuff aside, what's been your favorite experience or aspect of being a board member at the University of Rochester?
Getting to meet and work with some really fantastic people who are movers and shakers and making a difference in the lives of so many people.
So I came back to the board. I was on the board and I came back for many reasons, because of the relationships with board members. And I was asked to come back and, talk to the current chair of the board about how he was changing things. But I also came back to be very supportive to Dr. Sarah Mangelsdorf. and being a part of her coming into the university. I was so very proud of that. And to this day, I'm still very proud of that and enjoy very much working with her.
Well, for me, it's been a real honor and pleasure, and to be a part of this board. I was blown away when I was asked to be a part of this organization. It's done a lot for me over the years. The trajectory of my career turned that decidedly upward after I graduated from Simon. And I stayed in contact with the university, tried to support Simon through advisory councils and other things. But to have the opportunity to serve on this board, I think it's just a terrific board, highly capable and successful and accomplished people, and to have the opportunity to help shape and be a part of continuing the success of this institution, for me, has just been a real privilege and honor.
Likewise, it's been really fantastic. I'm in my first year, and it's been fantastic to meet the other board members and trustees and to connect with alumni at the University of Rochester. And I can tell you that I graduated a long time ago, and a lot's been happening at the university. And it's been great to get a better understanding of all the things that are happening around the university now, all the activities, all the events, all the things that the students are doing, and just couldn't be more pleased about that. And sort of looking forward to spending more time on campus.
And Gina, for me, similarly, I think the sentiments have been well said. I was not an alum of the university, but I live here in Rochester, and I know what this institution means to this community. I happen to be a parent. I had a daughter that went to medical school, and actually was part of the medical staff there at a point in time. But it means so much to the community. It means so much to see students. I think it was a year ago, we celebrated one of our Black Rhodes Scholars. And anytime that I can engage with students or faculty, it's just so meaningful to do that. So it's been terrific. I do, this is probably my last comment. I do want to really compliment the university, Tom Farah, and his ability here. Karen Chance Mercurius, she's the vice president that's responsible for tonight. And she came here from Harvard. Tom did a great job attracting her, and she's just making all of the difference. So, we just got to get more talent, because that's the differential. Getting great talent to come help continuing to make this university better. And we know that there are people of color that can help with that.
All right, y'all. Last question for the night. And I will lead with unite, engage, empower, which basically defines the essence of the Black Alumni Network. So what can each of us do to support the network, as well as advance equity, diversity, and inclusion in our respective communities? It can be brief, it can be a word, it can be a phrase. What can we do?
Continue to unite and continue to engage and continue to empower. You all are doing a great job. I know this is just the first year, but there are many many Black alum, across the world, who I believe will want to get involved, who have networks themselves. And so this is a powerful force to advance equity, diversity, and inclusion. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of this wonderful panel this evening. And I'm ready to roll my sleeves up and get involved any way that I can.
For me, would be engage and support. You have to be involved, you got to be bought in, and you got to provide the support. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of heavy lifting, and so I think that's absolutely necessary.
We need your voice and we need your engagement in order to make the university as great as it can be. So I know that there are networks out there, so don't wait. Connect with the Black Alumni Network, connect with your alumni, engage. It's a way to give back to the community, make it as best as can.
So for me, it's about, show up, participate, right? Share your voice and don't accept excuses from yourself or anybody else, right? We've no time anymore for excuses. We've got to move forward.
And actually, I think for me, it's to be a little bit more courageous. I think all of us have had tremendous success and we had courage coming along, but I suspect there's still a little bit more courage that, that's the year we can role model. And so I think if we can be a little bit more courageous, I think that's going to yield even more benefits and more dividends to others as well.
Wow. We just have to take a breath, right? And breathe in all of what was shared. There's power in just that, the simplicity of just saying, ooh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Emerson, Mary Frances, John, Kathy, and Curtis, for your insightful and wonderful conversation. You have truly gifted us, blessed us, empowered us tonight with this. It was almost like we were just getting started, right? So we know we're gonna have to have additional conversations in the future to keep the conversation going, but that conversation, quote unquote, is in the work that we do. We are grateful for our interpreters who participated and added value for this program. Thank you to the staff from Alumni and Constituent Engagement for just empowering us to keep going with this work. We are grateful for all of you who decided to take a little bit of time and be a part of this conversation tonight. We hope you enjoyed the program and we would like to hear your feedback. Please take a moment to share your thoughts about the session through a brief and anonymous survey. The link for the survey will appear on your screen at the end of the webinar. Select Continue to get to the survey. We value your voice and participation. We invite you to share your life's experiences, to be advocates for change, to be mentors and advisors to our students and other alumni, and to help us celebrate Black excellence and build a better future for us all. If you are interested in finding out more about the Black Alumni Network and volunteer opportunities, please see the link, and hopefully the link will also be shared in the chat as well. But you can just put in your Google search, Black Alumni Network, University of Rochester, and voila, guess what? Click on that first link and honey, you're gonna be brought right to us. So have a beautiful, beautiful evening and thank you again for joining us. Blessings.